Jimmy Carter takes office firmly determined to erase the CIA's dark years and then its covert operations and low-handed tactics.
You have to be even more pure and more clean and more decent and more honest than almost any persons who serve in government.
President Carter names Admiral Stansfield Turner, a fellow student at the U.S. Naval Academy, to head up the agency. Turner is reviled by the CIA's rank and file. 1 year earlier, he testified before Congress about the agency's misdeeds in the 1960s.
And again, I want to express my complete appreciation and confidence in Admiral Stan Turner, whose responsibilities under this executive order will be greatly magnified.
There was considerable skepticism about an outsider coming in as opposed to a professional CIA person.
When Turner came in, there was a lot of pressure for the CIA to reveal some of its secrets about what it had done in Congo and various other places. And he was the one who had to go before the congressional committees. And I think a lot of the people in the CIA are part of a culture that says you never talk about these things. Just always say, just lie, don't admit it. And Turner went out and admitted these things.
He came in, I think, with a view that he was going to kind of clean up the CIA a little bit or change its culture a little bit.
But the whole culture of the CIA is against transparency. You don't want people to know what you're doing.
He tried to change the organization, I think, in a pressure the organization in ways that it didn't like. Bureaucracies don't like people to come in and try to change them.
His style of meeting with all the lower level people and bypassing senior people tended to antagonize some of the senior staff, and that created some problems.
I don't think the CIA liked the style of kind of opening up the agency to greater public scrutiny. I think Turner's view was that you can't keep this agency completely secret after Watergate.
Stan came into the agency feeling that the agency had been too autonomous, it had been too fragmented, that the DDO in particular was out of control.
I think he was always a little uncomfortable with clandestine operations.
Stansfield Turner was a good person with good intentions who suffered the same disease that most Navy admirals suffer. He had an overwhelming faith in technology and he had no faith in people.
They felt that somebody from the outside wasn't able to make decisions about spying techniques and such forth.
This guy is so strange, very strange guy, Turner. He has a real history.
Stansfield Turner will be remembered for nearly launching a nuclear strike against the Soviet Union due to a misinterpretation that made U.S. experts believe a missile had been fired at the United States.
It was a mistake. There was a problem. It gave some indicators that there might be an attack coming. You can artificially put into this radar a signal that says, here come missiles, so that the people watching that radar every day and day in and day out know what it is going to look like, what they're going to look for. Somebody can push the wrong button and you get this artificial picture coming in, you see what I mean? And so then you look at these others and you say, nothing's going on. What's wrong here? And somebody says, oh, we pushed the wrong button.
He's crazy, that guy. Personally, he's a little nutty, Turner.
There were people who think he was the worst director we've had, and there are people who disagree with that and think that he was okay. He certainly, in my view, was not our best director.
I'm not sure that Stansfield Turner's period as director will be regarded as a good time for either the American people or the CIA.
He did more damage to the CIA than the Church and Pike commissions. He and Schlesinger and a few others managed to kill the clandestine service.
Shortly after taking office, Jimmy Carter pardons conscientious objectors to the Vietnam War. He makes the Middle East his top priority. After 13 days of talks with Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat at Camp David, Israel and Egypt sign a separate peace agreement. But Iran will hand Carter his first failure, and a scathing one. But in mid-August 1978, the CIA gave President Carter erroneous intelligence about Iran, saying the country was not on the brink of revolution or even moving towards it. William Quandt was senior staff member for the Middle East on the National Security Council.
The Iranian Revolution, that's a major turning point. I think it is probably true that before 1979, we in the United States, and I would say probably most other countries as well, had not yet taken Islamic militancy very seriously.
We were surprised in Iran. Neither the Department of State nor the Central Intelligence Agency understood that a revolution was coming.
When all the unrest began in Iran, the Deputy National Security Advisor in the Carter administration, with whom I was working, asked CIA for any information they had on Islamic fundamentalism. And the answer that came back was they'd never heard of it.
The Ayatollah Khomeini, exiled in Neauphle-le-Château, France, has been preparing an Islamic revolution for months. He openly displays his plans to oust the Shah of Iran's feudal regime put into power by the CIA 25 years earlier.
I, the CIA, made the assumption that even though the Shah was in trouble at home domestically, he had very powerful military and intelligence police forces, and that if there were riots in the streets, he would bring out the police and he would kill people if necessary, but he would remain in power.
I know that Admiral Turner has publicly stated several times that they had no indication that a religious cleric living in France would be able to mount such an enormous revolutionary effort.
We missed badly. The CIA and the rest of American intelligence did not understand that Khomeini was going to be able to do what he did in the time and way that he did it.
From the whole time he was in exile, almost no one on the American side paid any attention to him.
And the mullahs became the source of fundamentalism, with Khomeini operating in your own capital, in Paris, or in France. And we didn't take a strong line about the poison that he was disseminating throughout the Arab world.
We thought that they were just another sect amongst religious sects around the world.
And I remember talking to the man who was considered to be the most observant, the most reliable American intelligence analyst of the Middle East and of Iran, who told me, well, Khomeini only wants to be pope. He does not want to be king. We do not need to worry about the Islamic Revolution in Iran.
The Shah himself, who, in the case of Iran, basically shared that view. He thought that the religious forces were reactionary, backwards, easy to manipulate, easy to buy off, and he didn't have to worry about them.
Ce sont seulement les communistes qu'on met hors d'état de nuire. Les autres, c'est pas tellement important.
He said, don't worry about the turbans. You know, I can take care of them. I know how to deal with them. They're easy.
He was wrong. And it was a mistake that the United States government, in different ways, committed as well.
Iran, because of the great leadership of the Shah, is an island of stability in one of the more troubled areas of the world.
We were spending too much time listening to the Shah and to the people around the Shah, and not enough time listening to the opponents in the regime and outside the regime.
There wasn't a single person in that embassy, including the spies, who spoke Farsi. We were all about first-class travel and fancy embassy dinner parties with the top people who were telling us what they wanted us to know.
The CIA had very little contact with the Islamist movement in Iran. I think the ambassador at the time had forbidden any contact by the CIA with opposition elements. That's always unfortunate when the ambassador does that, because it removes one very valuable source of information. And if those elements should come to power, nobody has any contact with them.
That happens, and we do that. We make mistakes like that.
When the U.S. government not only supports a dictatorship that represses its people, but then tells the Central Intelligence Agency it's not allowed to talk to the opposition, I have to ask myself, why have a spy service if you can't talk to the opposition secretly so that that government doesn't know?
Richard Helms, the former CIA director fired by Richard Nixon for refusing to lie about Watergate, is the American ambassador to Tehran. He's been a close friend of the Shah since lending a hand in the 1953 coup that toppled Mossadegh. He even trained and supervised the Shah's secret police.
He was sent as ambassador to Iran right after the Watergate. He was ambassador in the last days of the Shah.
Richard Helms told the Shah that the United States would back him, would give him any weapon system that he wanted. So there was close cooperation.
Stansfield Turner and Mrs. Carter were constantly sending back-channel messages to the Empress to stay and hang in there and all that kind of thing.
It would have been better to decide one way or the other. We did not.
Jimmy Carter would listen to one day and to the other the next day. And as a result, our policy was amiss. That's why it's not so much that we allowed him, that we consciously, Jimmy Carter sat down and said, I don't need the Shah anymore. Maybe I can make friends with the Islamicist. It was that he didn't know how sick the Shah was, and he didn't know what to do.
The CIA was very late in learning that the Shah was fatally ill. The French knew about it, but the CIA didn't get to know about it.
That failure was helped along by the French, who did not share with us the information that the Shah was mortally ill.
We knew there was a problem. We misjudged it and therefore did not predict his demise.
We did not anticipate the return of Khomeini. We did not anticipate the reception he would get.
The Ayatollah Khomeini is back in Iran. The United States turns its back on the exiled Shah, who is dying of cancer in the New York hospital. Richard Helms visits the Shah just days before his death.
I saw him in the hospital in New York when he was there for treatment for his cancer. And the first question they asked me was, why did you do it?
The Shah's position was hopeless. And at some point, the United States has to deal with reality. You can't cling to a failing cause indefinitely.
It's not the policy of our government to go into the internal affairs of another people or country and try to determine who should be their leaders. This is contrary to the philosophy of our people. I think we've tried it once in the past in Vietnam and failed abominably. And I think no one in this country of any responsibility wants to do that to a country including Iran.
Carter was a very interesting blend of toughness and naivete. And in many ways, he was almost schizophrenic because, for example, in the Soviet Union, until after the invasion of Afghanistan, he really never could make up his mind how to deal with the Soviet Union.
Despite Red Army movements on the Afghan border and repeated warnings from the CIA, the U.S. made concession after concession, pushing the détente process forward. Carter meets with Leonid Brezhnev in Moscow.
My appreciation of what happened in the Politburo of the USSR during most of 1979, everybody was sick or drunk, and they had some very wrong ideas. The whole Politburo was in a position to make a fatal error. On the 12th of December, they signed the document authorizing the military intervention in Afghanistan.
We pointed to the preparations for the invasion of Afghanistan, said the troops are in place. We don't think they're going to go in. They made a mistake that time. But the administration knew that the Soviet Union had the capability and had deployed its troops in such a way that it could act virtually any time.
We just did not believe the Soviets at that point in time would commit the kinds of forces that we thought they would need to be effective in Afghanistan.
So we knew they were ready to invade Afghanistan. There was no problem there. There was no surprise, except that we did not know they were actually going to do it.
President Carter draws the lessons of the CIA's shortcomings during the Iranian Revolution, questioning the agency's strategy and shortcomings in gathering intelligence. Stansfield Turner fires 700 CIA department heads and field officers and begins dismantling the agency.
Stansfield Turner was taking the CIA apart, cutting it back, cutting it back, cutting it back.
He fired hundreds of people, made them retire, fired them. I mean, there were a lot of, he got rid of a lot of CIA assets in the field. You know, key people that had been around for years that could do things.
Particularly in the Directorate of Operations, large number of people moved out.
He eliminated some 600 jobs. That was probably too many.
So the whole infrastructure was thrown out that had been taking years to build up from the 50s.
I don't think they had much use for CIA, and I don't think Stansfield Turner did any good at CIA. I think, as a matter of fact, their assessment of the world was probably flawed.
I may not have made the right decision. I may have been wrong.
That's the problem. Men like Stansfield Turner and Richard Helms and others who have led the CIA never look past their own noses.
Look, he was only doing what he was told to do. And that was to remove the human asset and build up the technical assets. That's what he was told to do, Stansfield Turner. He wasn't the fault. The president was the fault.
So in December of 1979, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, Jimmy Carter turned to Stansfield Turner and said, I want the CIA to do something about this. And the CIA said, what? We don't have any resources, thank you very much.
Jimmy Carter's last illusions about Brezhnev are crushed in 1979 when the Soviet army invades Afghanistan. After underestimating Soviet aims, Carter watches his house of cards collapse, discovering the world as it really is, neither harmonious nor just. But soon after, he asks Stansfield Turner and the CIA to start arming Afghan rebels to fight the Soviet occupation.
Jimmy Carter was the one that was most surprised in December, Christmas of 1979 when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, and he flew into a rage. He was very unhappy.
He didn't have a lot of experience with the communists, and he was, even though we warned him, the agency warned him about the invasion of Afghanistan, he was surprised that the Soviet Union would do that.
The world simply cannot stand by and permit the Soviet Union to commit this act with impunity.